Last month, Oklahoma celebrated its 106th anniversary as a state. But the story of the land and its people goes back much further. In this It's Your Government report, we visit the agency that is dedicated to preserving the state's heritage while educating the public about Oklahoma's rich and diverse history.
When people think of the Oklahoma Historical Society, this is probably what they envision. The Oklahoma History Center is a 35,000 square foot facility that serves as the Society's headquarters and houses world-class museum exhibits and a state-of-the-art research facility. But the Oklahoma Historical Society is more than one building. Executive Director Dr. Bob Blackburn says the Society's roots go back 120 years, when members of the Oklahoma Territory Press Association founded the organization in Kingfisher.
The original instinct that they had was, we've got to collect the record of what's happening at this time. It was historic times, the land runs, the allotment of the Indian lands, the end of the frontier, this whole metamorphosis of a region was going on, and people could see it. They said, we've got to collect it. What better place to collect it than newspapers?
The Society became a state-supported institution in 1907 and went through several relocations, including a move to the Wiley Post Historical Society building in 1930, before settling into its present location near the state capitol 8 years ago. Deputy Director Dr. Tim Zwink says the Society's mission is to collect, preserve, and share the history and culture of the state of Oklahoma.
In order to achieve that statewide mission, the Oklahoma Historical Society has a number of programs. One of those programs is the Museums and Historic Sites program.
That program manages more than 30 museums and historic sites across the state, from the Tom Mix Museum in northeast Oklahoma to the Pioneer Heritage Townsite Center in the southwest, the No Man's Land Museum in the Panhandle, and the site of historic Fort Towson in southeast Oklahoma. Fort Towson plays a key role in an exhibit that will open at the History Center in February. Museum Director Dan Provost says that exhibit will tell the story of the steamboat Heroine, a story 175 years in the making.
What happened was in 1838, a steamboat was going up the Red River to provide provisions for the military post at Fort Towson. Within sight of the landing, it sank. It struck a snag and it sank. And the provisions, some of which were lost, some of which were salvaged. This is going to be that story.
Provost's people are often surprised to discover that riverboats once plied the rivers of Oklahoma, and believes this exhibit will tell some fascinating stories.
We'll be able to talk about the contents of the boat, how the boat was built, what it was doing, who was on it, some of the different things it did in its life, and we're going to do it through the words of people, through newspaper articles from the time, through the artifacts that have been recovered and will be preserved now for generations to come. All that's going to be part of this exhibit.
Last year, the center opened a major new exhibit titled Oklahoma at the Movies, celebrating Oklahomans' involvement with the cinema. That includes the man who, for decades, supplied the voice of one of Walt Disney's most famous cartoon characters, Donald Duck.
Back in the 30s, when Donald Duck was first developed, Walt Disney became aware of a voice, Clarence Nash, an Oklahoman, who provided the voice to Donald Duck and was immediately Walt Disney's selection as the person, this is the voice of Donald, this is the person we have to have. And of course, that continued all throughout the many decades that followed.
Another section of the museum is devoted to the Little Black Dress and its connection to Oklahoma, but that exhibit will soon be replaced.
And what this area will become is a special exhibit that focuses on the century chest. There's been a lot of information about the century chest, the time capsule that was placed in the basement of a church in 1913, and in April of 2013 was opened for the public.
The contents of the chest provided a long-awaited glimpse into Oklahoma's past, featuring items such as a metallic 1913 telephone, Indian artifacts, including a beaded garter and a spoon made from buffalo horn, and a special flag representing Oklahoma's entry into the Union as the 46th state. The Oklahoma Historical Society Research Center, located in the History Center building, helped put together the exhibit. Chad Williams is the director of research.
What we do in the research division is provide access to those type of historical documents and materials for our museum to create these wonderful exhibits that we have at the History Center.
The research center is open to scholars and journalists, but Williams says 90% of the people who use the reading room on any given day are exploring their ancestry through genealogical research.
People can basically do research for free. They can bring their computers in, type the data that they find on the websites, and the only thing they generally buy from us are copies if they want hard copies of something.
The Society isn't resting on its laurels. Blackburn says the next step is what he describes as another world-class facility in Northeast Oklahoma.
We have a plan for a museum called the Oklahoma Museum of Popular Culture, OKPOP for short, that uses the movies, television, radio, journalists, illustrators, and music to draw enough crowds to generate 100% of the income to run a museum. That never happens.
Blackburn says the Society has a plan for a funding mechanism which he maintains won't cost the state anything for the first 2 years. That plan will be presented to lawmakers after the legislative session begins in February.